No, just tell me what to say and I'll say it. Just tell me what to say and I'll say it.
That was good.
Just say the word podcast partner and I will cut it to the first thing you said.
Okay. Podcast partner.
Say it like you mean it.
Oh my God.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Our podcast partner.
Enthusiasm.
Podcast partner.
Howdy, partner.
Too much? Howdy. Our podcast partner.
It's fine. It's good.
Our podcast. You got it.
Our podcast partner. What's up, Casselberry? It's the What's Up, Casselberry podcast. We are back. It's Drew and Andy, episode number 76 of our podcast. Listener, guess what? We've got a little bit something different for you today. We are excited to do a little test episode, a best of, you might call it. This is going to be kind of a compilation over the next several minutes of some of the things that we've really enjoyed about doing this podcast for the past 18 months or so. Andy, I'm so glad that we get a chance just to kind of it's sort of a summer break, so to speak, just taking a breath and reflecting back on the past 18 months or so.
Yeah. I mean, really, the ability to do this is a sign of growth and success in our podcast. I think when we started, Drew, we really didn't know what we were doing. We just knew there was lots of great things happening in our city. We knew that a sense of community was important. And so we just kind of randomly kind of plucked an idea out of the sky and we run with it and it's working. And, you know, this is only going to be a 30-minute episode like most of our episodes are. But the reality is this best of episode could be a 4 or 5-parter because over the last, 16, 17 months, we've really had some tremendous guests, some insightful folks, and they've shared some thoughtful, helpful community building wisdom. So as we do this best of episode, I'm just very grateful to you and Robin and the journey that we've been on to help strengthen the foundation and the fabric of our community. So let me ask you guys, as we get ready to play this, just to indulge you and indulge us, what have been your favorite moments of this podcast run so far?
Andy, it's funny when you said over the past months of doing these conversations every week, I was thinking we've had 75 episodes and probably, at least 65 of them have been conversations with others, sometimes multiple guests. So, we've probably spoken to 80 or so people from our community or right there around our community. And that, of course, has been a great joy. Drew Acosta and some of his humor, as well as integrating him into our podcast kind of show and flow has been interesting. But I would say one thing that really has stood out to me is the privilege to be able to recognize and honor those in our community. We've given out a few community member of the month awards, John Jones, Kim Young. We've been able to highlight and celebrate a lot of the work that's being done around our community. I remember celebrating and kind of reporting that Casselberry Elementary School was an A-rated school, and what a celebration that was. But just really being able to champion our community, to celebrate with those who won our local elections, those who are serving in the police force, those who are running successful businesses, you name it, across the board. That's what we're about, is really elevating the dialogue, elevating the conversation, and promoting the great things that are happening in our city. So I gave a few examples. Sorry, that wasn't just one, but yeah, that's where I'm at. What about you, Andy? What do you enjoy about this ride so far?
Yeah, I think mine would be similar to yours. I am just fascinated by people, and I love people and finding out what makes them tick. So to be able to kind of get inside the lives and the mind and the brain and the heart of some of our community members has just been fascinating and thought-provoking for me. And like you say, it's been interesting to talk to some of the leaders within in our community and find out who they are and what makes them tick. But I've really, really enjoyed getting to know some people that perhaps we didn't know before this as well, and shining a spotlight on what they're doing and understanding them and reaching out into parts of our community that aren't a natural draw to us. That's been a real blessing to me. So it sounds like we've all got some highlights, and without further ado, we should probably encourage our listeners to keep listening to some of the highlights to come. But just to say, listener, as you listen, don't take this as anything but a launch pad for what's coming next, right? We're celebrating what's happened over the last few months, but believe me, the best is still ahead for our little podcast. We've got some great guests lined up who are going to speak about some value-adding, exciting projects in our community. And we would take this moment to thank you for listening, but also to ask you to tell your friends about the podcast as well. And maybe this best of episode is a great first one to share with them.
Willow Creek Church exists to glorify God by declaring with our words and demonstrating with our hands the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We invite you to come discover and deepen your relationship with Jesus. We believe you were created for more. Located between the communities of Casselberry and Winter Springs, Willow Creek Church is a warm, welcoming place that meets each and every Sunday at 10 a.m. for worship, as well as various Bible studies, small groups, social events, service outreach, and much more throughout the week. Check us out at willowcreekchurch.org or on Facebook at Willow Creek PCA. You are loved. Don't forget it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our most exciting part of the podcast, where we interview someone of notoriety, someone of fame, someone of greatness. But today we kind of had to pass on that, and we just kidding.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my pastor, Andy Searle, folks, just lifting me up all the time. Would you care to start again, sir?
All right, okay. We can start again.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Drew, for having me. Thanks for that wonderful setup. That's good.
So, Doug, you were born and raised in Boston, but now you live in Seminole County. Big difference between those two areas. What are some of your favorite things about living in Seminole County?
Well, it's warm, mostly 12 months a year. I grew up in snow. I grew up in blizzards. I can't say I miss it. Love shoveling sunshine. Living here, you're close enough to everything if you want it, like the parks. And I'm a golfer, so there's a lot of great golf down here, and it's a lot cheaper than playing up north. I just like the lifestyle. To me, living in a city can be intense, and I just enjoy the quiet. I have a nice short commute to work. Pace is lower. It's lower key, so I do enjoy that. I mean, I think we have a lot of great restaurants and things around here. Love being in Casselberry and all the options there as well. It's comfortable.
I like that. Shoveling sunshine. I might take that for having been born and raised here in the state. Doug, I appreciate you mentioned at the top a little bit about your background in television. What's your thought on just a lot of the new communication mediums? We're on a podcast via Zoom. There's different social medias. What are your thoughts in seeing how individuals are receiving information, and what's the good, the bad?
There's pros and cons. I mean, I grew up at a time when we had 3 TV stations and they all went off at midnight. So there wasn't the internet. There wasn't
the 24-hour news cycle.
24-hour saturation of news. And having been in that world and just seeing what comes out of it. And there's so much like what you folks do. This is a great podcast. It's highlighting something positive. It's highlighting a city. You're diving into your city and sharing the good things. And there needs to be more of that. There's a lot of, with the good comes the bad. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of disinformation. You see it in our politics now. You could find a podcast with some crazy wackadoodle conspiracy theories on it. Somebody watches it and believes it and shares it with a friend. So you're perpetuating something that doesn't deserve to be perpetuated. It's my hope that at some point we come to grips with the Facebooks, the Twitters of the world, where everybody has a platform. They can have the craziest off-the-wall ideas, but they have a platform to share it. That needs to be combated with truth, things that are uplifting, things that are helpful, things that are of God. featuring the good rather than whatever crosses somebody's mind in a random thought.
That's great. That's really helpful. And I think that's the space that Drew and I are trying to lean into. We did think about doing a 24-hour news podcast, but we fell asleep about 10:30. So that kind of is off the table. But Doug, having worked in communication and media for much of your career, give some not young, but some new budding podcast hosts some advice about how we can be purveyors of good, positive, uplifting advice.
Well, honestly, guys, I'm going to quote George H.W. Bush here. Stay the course. I think what you guys are doing is great. I think it's something that's necessary. I wish there was more of it. Stay positive. Look for the good in what you're doing, even though you had me on, but whatever. Just look for the good in what you're doing. Keep lifting up the city. Keep lifting up what's going on. Raise awareness of things. Be a platform for good, for change. I think what you guys are doing is great.
We have a very special guest, Pastor Andre Martin, who is a pastor at Divine Truth Christian Center. Andre is one of my favorite folks in the city. He's a guy who has a calendar that seems to have more hours in it every day than mine and yours does, Drew. Somehow, he managed to squeeze about 36 hours worth of work into a 24-hour period. He has a full-time professional job. He pastors full-time. He's raising an incredible family. I don't know when he sleeps. Are you sleeping now?
No, I don't sleep. One person told me that, I think it was Itza Boso, said that sleep is for slackers.
Sleep is for... Hey, but you just had a birthday. You know that's not true. Sleep is for old men like us.
Yeah, that's what old men. See, that's how he feels. He's a gentleman that transformed your world. He's actually a great man of God, church planner from Argentina, actually. And I didn't quite get that revelation, but I will tell you that I love what I do, but I will say that rest is good and it is necessary. But yeah, I like to work hard, but I'm trying to even learn more now how to be efficient.
I love that every time I talk to you, Andre, there's something new that you're working on. You are a leader of great vision. I know one of those visions that you have and hold dear as a church, as Drew and I do as well, is a vision for racial reconciliation. And we're living in a very difficult time right now where we're realizing a lot of the sin and evil in our nation as it manifests itself in all kinds of injustice. A question that everybody's asking right now is, what can we do about some of the racial reconciliation needs in our society? I realize that's a huge question, but how would you begin to answer that?
Well, as many of you all may know, we had a prayer and peace walk just recently with the other churches in the area to be a catalyst for what we wanted to do in order to kind of start a conversation. And I think that is very important, is just to be able to talk with people, because there are some people that will not listen. Mm-hmm. As some people would say, individuals can be set in their ways, which basically means some people are very prideful. But I am reminded that when the scripture says that love covers a multitude of sins. And so typically in those particular cases, you say what you have to say and then you move on. But there are a lot of people who really want to try to get rid of some of the blind spots that they have in regards to how they deal with people that do not look like them. And so for those individuals, I believe that you should have sit-down conversations and be able to work through specific things. And sometimes it's not going to be overnight. Sometimes it's going to be over a period of months or even years by being consistent in your position. And then also realizing that not everybody is in the church world. Some people have a worldview that's based on a political framework. And so when they see the world through those type of lens, then you have to basically dissect, okay, some of the buzzwords that you would see, such as what is cultural Marxism? What is virtue signaling? Mm-hmm. What about what Candace Owens is saying? What about the lady who did the experiment with the brown and blue eyes and about what she is saying? So there's different types of buzzwords that's out there. And what is the essence of Black Lives Matter? And how can you separate that out of the political agenda that maybe a group like that may have, versus the pure side of it that really is talking about the life of Black people, which I'm very, it's a particular topic that's near and dear to my heart. And so to be able to separate out those things and detangle issues and not let sometimes competing organizations start putting their agenda in there, especially during election years. Sometimes you start seeing things flare up a little bit. To try to detangle those things and then just stay strictly focused on a specific area, I think that is very important.
Yeah, I love that. And not to share too much because we haven't worked it out yet, but the prayer and peace walk was really supposed to be a step one of bringing reconciliation within our city, within our relationships, strengthening the unity that we have. And so grateful that you hosted that and led that so well for our community. I think we probably had about 300 people come out, which I know blew all of us away. But the next challenge for us is to say, how do we create conversations in our community? And so you and I have talked privately, maybe we can just share a little bit publicly about where we'd like to go now in those reconciliation conversations in our community.
Well, I would say the first step is just to have a willing heart and be willing to come to the table. I think that's step number one. Yeah. And also to not be intimidated by that. I think that it was very important. I heard some individuals talk about safe spaces in order to really share their ideas and even some of the implicit biases that they may have. So I think that a lot of people are aware of explicit bias, the grotesque situation that happened on social media, but then there's a lot of implicit bias, just the way that you carry yourself, or if you see a group of people of color that's in a specific neighborhood and you're not used to seeing that, then sometimes the very first thing is, okay, what are you doing here? Or are you supposed to be here? Well, you have to think about, okay, well, where does that come from? What have you seen in your life that makes you think that is case? Is it news reports? Is it how you were raised? A lot of people think that the situation with segregation was like 300 years ago, but no, it was. There's people that are walking around and that are living to this day that actually lived through that particular area and still have some of those feelings from that particular era. Yeah. And so they might be in nursing homes now, they may be a boomer right now, but some of them still have a very clear picture of what happened during those times.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you think we need to be talking about as a community as we address this issue?
Well, one of the things that I propose to the group of individuals that I'm working with is 7 steps to reconciliation. And like I said, the very first step is just coming to the table.
I think it's important to say that group you're working with pastors, law enforcement personnel, some city officials. It really is a community together issue. Yes, not just a church thing.
Yeah, it's not just a church issue, because I think that the church should be a good example of how you could tackle things that cannot be covered by legislation. I think Martin Luther King said it so poignantly. He said that legislation, you can't legislate morality, I'm paraphrasing here, but it can help redirect certain behaviors. And so I think that it's necessary for us to have good civic leaders that want to participate, that are not looking for photo ops, but basically really want to help, because society is changing and things are becoming more diverse just by natural people coming together, as well as birth rates. All of those things are happening. And so you might as well go ahead and get in front of it now, because it's not going to change anytime soon. So one of the solutions that we did come up with for the people that want to participate, or these 7 steps, are, number one, just having a session at a specific facility that's talking about how to remove pride and prejudice, because a lot of these things are just heart issues. You can't really come up with a policy in order to change that, but conversation is just number one. That's number one. Number two, talking about the second commandment. Well, okay, what is that? Loving your neighbor. What does that really mean? Neighbor. A neighbor is not a sister or a brother. They could be a sister or a brother, but it's not necessarily a sister or brother. This is somebody that you're in close proximity to. What is their construct? What is their worldview on things? Like with the pandemic, many of us did not really talk to people until we had to go outside. I know in our neighborhood, you can go for years without talking to people, and then all of a sudden, oh, you do live over there. I think that is so important. So I think that's so important. And then the next one is, what politics have to do with it? I do believe in the separation of church and state for some areas, but I also believe that you should be able to navigate your way through all different types of people without gaslighting the situation. So we have to be able to talk to individuals that have different worldviews. Number 4, how to engage with law enforcement. Number 5, it all starts at home. In other words, what are those private conversations that you have? What happens when mama or papa comes from a different region of the country, and they have those private conversations when they see Colin Kaepernick on the screen? What is that conversation like? And then what is being said or what is not being said? You know, there's this one thing that I, as I conclude with the different areas, there's what we would call the sin of omission and the sin of commission. The sin of omission is basically when you know better and know that you could get yourself involved, but you decide to wash your hands of it.
Yeah.
Versus like what Pilate did. Well, yeah, I could get involved right here, but I'm gonna wash my hands of it because you know this is you guys' problem. So I think that's very important to highlight that. And then number 6, how we got here, a good history lesson, because some people really don't know how all of this came about. This is not a new thing. This has been around for centuries. It goes all the way back to England and what happened from 1619 all the way up until right now.
We've got a Brit in our mix. Sorry.
Yes, but I mean, but there's a historical element that's there too, and then you also have to address the elephant in the room, which is how people feel. Okay, well, yes, 1619, Andy was not born. Neither was I. So how do you deal with people?
We were a couple of years after, weren't we?
Two. On the great. But I mean, you have to tackle, particularly how to talk with people who were not there when those specific things happen, and how to put that in a separate category from the attitudes that still persist from that time up until now. And so some of those things, when it's so ingrained into a culture, you really don't really notice it until it comes to the surface like it is during this moment in time. And then finally, having courageous conversations. So now that you get educated on those specific pieces, how to actually talk together, and like we're doing right now, and talking through some things in a safe manner, and then bringing the right people to the table. I do not claim to speak for the entire African American population in Central Florida or Casselberry for that matter, but I do believe that you have to have the right type of people that can speak intelligently about specific type of issues, because my agenda is love and respect and equal footing as much as possible in this world that we live in.
Today on the show, we have some incredibly interesting, thoughtful guests, Chip and Georgia from the Altamont Wekiva Life magazine, who have covered many great stories over their careers in journalism and recently stooped to a new low as they interviewed us. But they did a great job and made us sound good. So we thought that we would return the favor and try and share with you, our listeners in Casselberry, about this great magazine that helps us understand a little bit about what's happening in Seminole County, in our area, and in our city. So welcome, Georgia and Chip. Georgia, when you're writing and publishing and editing and photoshopping and designing and all that kind of stuff, who are you writing for? Who's your target demographic? Who's in that sweet spot?
Well, as Chip said, we cover all of Seminole County. So that is about 60 to 65,000 families that we reach. Of course, we are hyper-local, like we mentioned. So each magazine is really catered to the people who live within those cities. So, for example, Altamont Wekiva Springs Life would be Altamont Springs, Wekiva Springs, Casselberry, and some parts of Longwood. So, we're writing to really all the residents. Obviously, we speak maybe more to families and to adults because they are the ones who receive the magazine in the mail. But our magazines are interesting because if you look at it, the way our magazine's laid out, we have the around town section where you can see what's going on, what events have happened, what events are coming up. In the calendar section, you can see that what businesses are opening up nearby. And then we do healthy living, and then we do the family fair section, which is basically anything going on in the schools. And then kind of what I love are the feature stories, which is just the heart and soul of people and just showcasing here's what's going on in our hometown. And we want people to be proud of where they're from and know about their neighbors. So the reach is big.
I love that. Georgia, kind of along those lines then, what would you say, just being a part of a hyper-local magazine focused primarily on Seminole County, what is a real strength of the magazine that is different from kind of a bigger, more statewide or national magazine?
I would say that what makes us different is that people can open up our magazines and say, that's me, or that's my friend, or there's some connection. There's a connection of the heart to the pages of our magazine. And I don't think national magazines can do that. Our content is truly unique. You will not find it anywhere else. I believe that. I mean, Chip, you might want to chime in as well on that.
Yeah, the beat, I guess. I mean, what we sort of call our content is positive community news. And that's really what separates us. We don't do crime. We don't cover politics. We don't do those things. It's, extraordinary stories that are happening from the regular people that you may have around you. And of course, the secret to that is there's no regular people around you. Everybody is extraordinary and they have their own extraordinary talents and stories to tell and things like that. And there's no way that bigger regional, state, national magazines can dive into those things the way that we can because we're hyper-local. So that positive community news angle is really what separates us and gives us the opportunity to tell the stories not only of the residents, but of local businesses too. And that, of course, is a critical part of our business model.
Can I confess that when my magazine comes in the mail, my wife and I have a little guessing game as to how many people will recognize in it? Does anyone else do that? Have you heard that before?
Yeah, and actually, that's really the ethos of the magazine. Sort of the founding principle was we want you to open it up and see your neighbors and see yourself and your neighbors and your friends. And the joke that we make is when we do a story about you in the magazine, we want it to be where you go out to check your mail after it comes out. And then your neighbor's walking down the street and says, oh my gosh, I saw you in Altamont, Wekiva Springs Life. That's the goal. We sometimes people call us, I don't know that I love this analogy, but folks call us the people magazines of Seminole County, right? And, it fits. But again, it's because we want to not make people famous in their own communities, but we want you to see yourself. We want you to see your neighbors. There's no other format that can really deliver that. And that's really the secret sauce that makes our magazine special.
That's great. I thought I saw some paparazzi hanging around the Searles house the other day. Just Life magazine. Yeah. Well, speaking of stories, you all, there I imagine are some very interesting features or potential leads that go through your desk. Is there something maybe recently, just an interesting, unique, or even favorite story that you've written?
We just sat down. We live in the future, we like to say, because our magazines come out every 2 months, right? So we recently just sat down to discuss what's going to be in our November-December issue. And so that editorial planning is always fun because, like you said, the stuff floats, pops up to the surface. So one thing that was really fascinating to me is there's a coffee shop. It's in Sanford, but a coffee shop called Palette Coffee. And they are a nonprofit organization that supports human trafficking relief and support. And victims of human trafficking can come to them and they fund programs that can rescue them and help them. And then at the same time, we just got a press release just yesterday, I think, Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, about another organization that was going to open a human trafficking rescue center here in Seminole County. And it just sort of struck me that it's so interesting that Central Florida is an area where human trafficking is a problem just because of the tourism industry and so many people kind of flow through our community, and those tend to be areas where human trafficking becomes a concern. But even still, it was fascinating to me that Seminole County has sort of become kind of this epicenter for human trafficking support and relief and rescue. And I just thought that was really, it just surprised me. You would think it would be such an Orlando kind of thing. So we're kind of investigating, why that is. Why is it that Seminole County is kind of becoming the place where so many good people are doing so much good work to save and support folks who've been victims of human trafficking. So that, talking about recently, that just jumped out to me, yesterday we were talking about that kind of thing.
Chip, it's almost like Orange County has the problems and we have the solutions here in Seminole.
It's possible. And I don't know this. And so I want to be very careful as I sort of, do some conjecture on this. But one of the ideas that crossed my mind was it is possible that where human trafficking itself might be sort of a big city problem, right? And, again, Orlando, for all the reasons we just discussed, may have the problem, as you said. It's possible, and again, I'm just guessing, but it's possible that maybe they're trying to establish the rescue and support mechanisms outside the big city, just to sort of physically separate from an area where the crimes are being committed and where the danger most exists, and set up the support mechanism a little bit off that beaten path. Now, again, that's a guess. I don't know. We're looking into it now. But what I do know is that there are a lot of wonderful, amazing, kind-hearted people in Seminole County who are, out of the goodness of their hearts, really making a very sad and tragic thing sort of their life's work.
Hey, listener, we sure hope you've enjoyed this episode of the What's Up Casselberry podcast. I know things were just a little bit different than they normally are, but as Andy said a bit earlier, great things are ahead. We've got some fantastic guests lined up, some exciting content. We're all things Casselberry. Please subscribe to our podcast if you have not done so already. Share it with a friend. Let them know that we've got some great content celebrating all that's being done in our community. We can't end today's episode without thanking our lovely and talented producer, Robin Kepi. She keeps Andy and I not only on track, but makes us sound better than we are. Robin, you truly are our Beyonce. Listener, thank you so much. And until next time, have a great week.